Hello, welcome to Stories About Life podcast. I am Sue Ann, and I just wanted to start this podcast as a way to tell stories and connect with people and share my reflections that might relate to your life, and maybe you won't feel so alone. I actually did post on my social media asking if you have any questions, any kind of stories you want to hear about, and some talked about life lessons on getting through tough times, recovery steps for burnout and relationships. As some of you may know, I do work as a counselor. I wasn't always a counselor, which I'll get into in today's episode. So someone did ask if I could share stories about my internship as I was pursuing this career as a counselor. We might get into that a little bit, maybe in the next episode. And some asked about navigating work-life stresses and growing up with strict parents. I may not have the exact same story, but I'll share a little bit about what has impacted me or stories that I read about or watch about. So I really love stories, fictional, because I always see there are lessons in them. Another question I had was also, as a counselor, how do I manage my well-being after sessions? Do I feel challenging or emotionally heavy? Again, I think this will be more in the next episode. And someone did ask to share how I grew and changed since all that I went through. I suppose they mean my career change, which to this episode I will share about what I did before I decided to work as a counselor. And you will notice that I say work as a counselor because as I have journeyed through this career change, I realized that oftentimes we hold too rigidly to our careers being our identity. And so, like even in starting this podcast, I had to think a lot about whether I wanted to do it. I feel like, people might judge me for being a counselor and not knowing the exact advice I want to give. And honestly, I'm not doing it to promote my counseling services or anything. It's just something that was resonating with me a lot that I really, really wanted to do, and I suppose it relates to the story I'm going to tell, and how lonely it can be sometimes when we're in those periods of career uncertainty and not knowing where we are in life. And so I wanted to start this so that just maybe hearing me in your ears or watching me on your devices, you feel a little less alone in feeling a certain way, especially feeling vulnerable and uncertain and unsure when everyone around you might look like they have things together. But it's just a little reminder that we are human, and so I wanted to share all these stories, and I guess I'll start with mine. So one of the questions was about how to recover from burnout. So I noticed a lot of people asking for advice, and I want to just preempt that please don't take this as advice that you must follow or be like, that's is the absolute right thing to do. As I said, I just want to share stories and see if it relates to you. If it's helpful, great. I'm very happy for you. If it's something you want to try, if it works or doesn't work for you, that is your journey. And I hope maybe at least I introduce a little idea for you to try, or made you feel a little connected to someone who's going through or has gone through a similar thing that you are going through right now. So, yeah, I do want to share, and I think I've told this story many times through trainings and even friends, my story of burnout. So this was when, as I said, I wasn't always a counselor. So this was when I was working in a Big Four accounting firm, meaning I graduated in tax, in accounting, and in law. So I decided I wanted to go into tax, as in TAX, tax. Some people mishear it as tax, TECH, but I was in tax, TAX. So when I was working as a tax consultant, I was actually quite driven, to be honest, when I first got the job or even applied for jobs. I was very, very sure this was the one company that I wanted to join. And I was very determined to like do all the right things around it as well, meaning like keeping healthy, watching what I eat, exercise, and I always believed in waking up early. I guess you could call me a bit of a high achiever. So when I first got the job or started the job, I was super driven. I think I was kind of overstudying. Even before I went into my tertiary education in uni, I already was like, can I just start working already? Like, I want to be productive. Maybe that's just the kind of person I am. So I was really excited. I finally get to start work. And so what I would do was wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and do my yoga. But 5 a.m. is pretty early for typical Malaysian, I would say. I guess not too early for parents and stuff like that who have young children going to school. But as a young, fresh grad, 5 a.m. was pretty early, and so I'll do my yoga, but then I'll stay in like corpse mode for a little while, just to get a few more snoozes in. So I'll do my yoga, then I'll have my breakfast, and I was being really healthy as well by having oats for breakfast and fruits. I can't take coffee or tea. Caffeine doesn't bode well with me. As some people already know, I'll get too hyper. So it's just oats, yoga to wake me up. And the reason why I wake up so early, as some parents might also know, is to beat the traffic in Kuala Lumpur here in Malaysia, because peak hour traffic is really crazy. So I'll be on the road by 6:30 in the morning, and it takes me about 1.5 hours to get to work in the city, because I lived with my parents or with my family in a suburban area all the way in Subang. So 1.5 hours. So I'll reach by 8, I think. If I still recall, this was more than 10 years ago now. And it's really funny that I keep telling the story, but it's the most significant burnout story I have. Anyway, so and it was a really dingy like car park that I had to park my car in. It's basically an old abandoned government building that was right opposite my office. The office that I was working in at that time. And I was just so tired that I would take a nap in the car. And it kind of smelled in that car park, I won't lie. there was a mamak, which is like a restaurant that would store their food in the car park because it was like the back of their restaurant. Yeah, so somehow it's really stinky. I don't know if it's because of the food stuff that the mama restaurant was doing, or it was just old, abandoned, and not maintained. But yeah, I would just turn off the car and just like lean back and nap for a little while, and just wait till like 8:15, and then so I get to work by 8:30. And usually work goes on until like typically, I would say on the average, when it started to become a norm, was 8 p.m. So it's 8:30 a.m. till 8 p.m. Sometimes it can go till midnight. And I know some of you out there who are working these kinds of jobs have experienced that. I even had colleagues who, during peak periods, or if they have a very urgent project, they stay on till 6 a.m. the next morning. I've had colleagues who sleep under their desks to get because there was no point going home to sleep, shower, and just turn back around because, like I said, it takes so long just to get to the office. So that's what lifestyle was like, day after day after day. Of course, there were little fun parts with my colleagues, who a couple of them I'm still close to and share interests with, even going to travel with. So we had our little distressing rituals where we go and eat good food for lunch, or try and find a fun place to eat, or just somewhere simple. It's not like fancy, but sometimes it's somewhere simple. Like I always remember going to this place with a colleague of mine. We both loved the tom yum soup. It's like Malay style tom yum soup, but that person would freshly put in all the spices, and it was so good. Like, it makes my mouth water just thinking about it. Sorry, going off track all over the place. So the hours were really long because there was so much work, and it always felt like there weren't enough people to do the work, especially for a lot of other colleagues who are in different departments as me. They definitely had workload that were like files of clients that piled up from the floor up to like above their heads when they're sitting. So I remember the office being really like dark and gloomy as well. But yeah, workload was a lot. I remember, and so I kept doing this day after day after day, right? And the way I felt was like, if you have ever experienced, but even if you haven't, but this is how I felt, like when your car has one of the tires punctured, but you can't stop in the middle of the road, and you just have to keep driving, and so that tire's kind of like plodding away like that. And that's how I felt. Like, I can keep going, but it's really slow and draggy and heavy. I started to wonder if I was depressed, like clinically depressed, and I started to really dread getting out of bed. It just got really, really hard to get out of bed and do my yoga and all that. Work-wise, it was kind of fun. I enjoyed the intellectual challenges, being creative when we wrote pieces of advice or reports or trying to find solutions for clients. At some points, it was difficult, like I was going to talk about what was difficult about the work, but what comes to mind was actually what was difficult was dealing with certain bosses and colleagues, mostly certain characters at work. So the people I worked with. And the point where I realized I was burnt out was I started feeling sick, right? But I wasn't really sick. It was just like I felt so tired that I just couldn't, I just didn't have the energy to get out and go to work or just get out of bed, really. And I would just insist that I'm sick. And sometimes I remember just sitting in bed or lying in bed, almost like willing myself to be sick so I have a legit excuse for just not showing up for the day. Even as I say that, like, yeah, I can feel that sadness just well up behind my eyes and my throat. I just didn't want to face this life that I once was so driven to lead, you know. And so I'll go to the doctors because I legit felt like I was sick, like I thought I had a fever or something, and the doctor would say no, like, and I had a really, really empathetic, understanding family GP. So she's known me since I was a kid. If she knows anything about me, I have a pretty good immunity system. So it was just like one time I went in, I had an abscess like around where my pants is, like here. And but I felt feverish, and I went to her and I waited. She's really patient and slow, so sometimes I have to sit in her waiting room for an hour. But her waiting room's really like old school but comfortable. So I'll be waiting there for an hour and just like this, you know, like I'll be head back, lying on the sofa, like as if I have a fever and I'm really, really tired. I get in and she, you know, does the checks and I don't have a fever. But I tell her, oh, I have an abscess, like something here, and then on where my pants is, and then she's like, oh yeah, you do. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think by right, she couldn't actually issue me an MC for that. But she figured out, like, you know, she was like, well, you can't wear pants comfortably and go to work like this. So she wrote me an MC. I hardly took MCs when I was at work. At least in my first job, you know, like when I first started, I'll need to get like once a year when I really like have a full-on flu or something like that. In that period, it was about 2.5 years in of working there. Yeah, she could see that I was burnt out, I think. And maybe she thought I really just need, like, what back then we didn't have was like a mental health day. So she gave it to me. And also the other point was when I was feeling this way, all this like tiredness, constant fatigue, I went into, I remember like a little like update session with the bosses, and they were like reading out everyone's productivity percentage. They have that in the system. So essentially like how many hours you work versus how many hours you're supposed to work. I don't know how it's calculated, but mine was 110%. Like she was going through one by one, like, oh, okay, 80%, 70%, blah, blah. So when, 110%. I was like, oh. And then I felt guilty. I was like, oh, did I over put in my hours or something? But I remember being very precise. Like I was like, I'm a very honest person. So I was just like, whatever hours I put in, I'm just actually work, I'm just going to put that into the system. I remember that I was being very precise during that period when that results were being read out, and I was like, what? In fact, I think some of the projects, because we had a smaller budget, I actually underclaimed how many hours I worked on it. And I was so surprised. I was like, oh, it's 110%. Like, and it just hit me like, oh, no wonder I'm so tired. And so my tiredness is not because there's something wrong with my attitude, or I just was putting a lot of blame on myself. And also I remember a secretary during that period, as I was like burning out, she said to me, usually people start to want to leave when they start to take a lot of MC. And I think that's when I was like, oh, I am really burnt out. But I didn't know that it was called burnt out. I just thought I was depressed, because I didn't know. I was not a mental health practitioner or have any psychology background back then. I just knew I fell off. And I forgot to mention that actually while working, although it was, not 2.5 years, 3.5 years. So while working, like the first 2.5 years-ish, we have to do our professional papers. So essentially we're working full-time and overtime almost every day, whilst trying to pass and study our papers. So on the weekends, most of us who are the newbies or are pursuing our papers, we have to go for classes on the weekends. I would sort of pace myself. I took one paper per semester, so it wasn't too bad, but it was too bad. Imagining you're already working overtime like every day during the week, and then on the weekend you gotta go for class. It's almost like you're working 2 jobs. And then because I felt all this way about in terms of the work I was doing, besides the whole like being really tired because of the hours and the workload, I also started to feel like, is this work actually meaningful to me? And what triggered that was when my dad passed away. Actually, while he was already very sick, it was something that was like, there was no cure, there was no medicine to sustain him or anything. It was just like any time, right? So when he passed, I think that's when I went even more depressed. And when someone passes away, you start to realize how precious life is, and how important it is to live life in a meaningful way. So I think that's when I started to question whether what I was doing at work is what I wanted to do. And I also recall like being at home when he was still alive, just complaining about work, especially the people I worked with, certain bosses that were really unreasonable. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, how can that be? How can that be one of the few conversations I had with Dad before he passed, Like, I don't want him wherever he is, or, I want him to know that I'm making full use of the life to be the kind of person or daughter that he raised, and apply myself in life in a way where I'm thriving, and not in this way where I felt like a fish stuck in a fishbowl. Like, life felt really contained and small. And I got obsessed with that song by Pink Floyd called Wish You Were Here. And that line that says, we're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year. I remember walking around the office and just being like, this feels like a fishbowl. I remember it was overtime, maybe 3/4 of the office, no, actually maybe like 90% of the office is left, and it was kind of dark. And some of the usual suspects who are always working overtime in the darkness were around, and their lights were on in their glass offices, and I just walked around looking into the glass offices, even the ones that didn't have their lights on. I'm just like, I feel really stuck. I feel like I am swimming around and around in a fishbowl, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so at one point, after passing all my papers, you think like, yeah, I should just live my life. No, what this girl did was she went to also pick up masters in counseling, because I guess I was trying to help myself, but I always had an interest in psychology or something that's in a helping profession. So I decided to just do it. And so that, instead of waking at 5 a.m., I woke up at 4 a.m. just to do my assignments. I guess one good thing about work at that time was that my bosses were flexible. They knew I was getting my work done, so they let me go for classes on some of the weekdays, because it's a part-time course. So sometimes the classes are at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and they allowed me to go. So but I still needed to finish my assignments, yeah. So 4 a.m. it was. I guess that furthered the burnout as well. And so part of the counseling course is for all the students to also experience their own therapy, so that they can address or process the issues that they may be stuck on as well, because those issues might come up when they see clients, and if they have not processed it themselves, they might get stuck in session with the clients also. So I went for therapy sessions, and I remember one of them was me writing in and saying, can I please see a clinical psychologist, because I suspect I'm depressed and I just want to do the assessment, and I want someone to observe me and let me know if I am clinically depressed. So I did the assessment. They made me do the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. So I did it. They got my results. And when I went for a session, the therapist essentially said or helped me realize that what I'm experiencing is not clinical depression, but a burnout. And I actually kind of based my master's thesis around this experience as well, the burnout. So I'm now at the reflection part of the stories. I know I have not been very, following a sequence or like a very clear timeline. And I hope that just comes across more authentic and natural. Feel free to complain about it, that's okay. But importantly, I hope you kind of connect and relate to it. So my reflection as I pursued my master's was that there are few reasons for burnout. And at first, to me, it used to be, it's because of the job. The job sucks. Who the hell wants to be in accounting and tax? It's such a stressful job. And I also thought, oh no, it's the people. A little bit about people, but I'm just like, it's the company. The overall culture is just so toxic. Sometimes it could be that, but I was looking for a reason to blame, but I realized everyone's burnout has an individual and different and unique experience. So one of them is clearly burnout. Like, I don't think physically we can, or even mentally, because when you're physiologically tired, you can't, like, mentally, emotionally, everything goes, brain and heart and emotions and mind, they all come together. So the workload and the hours is clearly too much, which can cause burnout. Secondly, of course, is the people. Maybe not so much like you can't, maybe sometimes yes or no, it's a gray area here, but what I noticed mainly was sometimes it really is the direct people you're in contact with at work that could affect you. Like, I saw colleagues being bullied and gaslighted. I had someone who was also made it very difficult to get our work done because they made things very personal. Sometimes it could be that they are micromanaging, and that impedes your independence at work, your freedom at work. Your independence, actually. So we are, when we grow, as people, generally, one of our basic needs is a sense of independence. And when that's stripped away at work, and then sometimes, especially for parents, it's also kind of stripped away at home, because you can't really have your own freedom and make decisions based on your own needs and freedom to decide on things, then you might take it out at home. But it also makes it hard for you at work without that sense of independence to exercise your prerogative in how you want to do things, your creativity, and so that could also cause burnout. That's just my reflection or understanding on things. I feel a bit iffy about it if I'm being really honest about my understanding of that. So yeah, forgive me if you totally disagree. Sometimes the work might be beyond your experience, and then there's a lack of mentorship or guidance or coaching, and of course, if the work just doesn't align with either your personality, your career personality, or your values, imagine dragging yourself through that every day. That's going to be really hard as well. And of course, working with difficult people, I feel is one of the biggest causes of the burnout, along with the hours at work. I feel like this too, as well as the work not aligning with my own personality, is what caused my burnout. So these three things. So I used to be like, yeah, who the hell wants to be an accountant? But then when I happened to be able to see another counselor who happened to be working on a piece of research to do with career counseling. So she allowed me to do a test, sort of a little survey. Some of you will be familiar with it. I've always talked about it. It's called the Holland's Career Choice Test. And or it's also called the RIASEC code, RIASEC. So anyway, I did the test, and although I am highly trained in the area, what we call conservative, but I like to call it compliance. Although I'm highly trained in that skill, so compliance meaning like auditing, like accounting, lawyer, following the rules, anything that's very like organized, structured, very like following the rules, keeping things in order kind of work. I scored like second highest for that because my skills in it was really good. But my natural inclination or interest is the artistic, which was absolutely opposite of that. But I always felt like I'm not very talented in anything artistic, but I've always been very interested, and I take to it like fish to water, I guess. Not in the skills side of things, but in terms of appreciating it and interest in it. So hence why I watch a lot of movies, shows, TV shows. Even with books, I find it so hard to read non-fiction. I always read fiction instead, and I guess that's what inspired me to come into this. So there was that tension, right, which caused a lot, which basically was part of what caused burnout. I spent more than 8 hours a day. Even if I were to spend 8 hours a day doing that opposite thing, which is the compliance type of work, when my natural was artistic, it was a constant battle within me. And there was a sort of a middle ground where they connect, which is the social, which is like the helping profession. So I was also told that if I only do social work, then I would also burn out because my higher interest or personality preference is still artistic. So it was a journey. I don't think I immediately found anything artistic I could genuinely pursue. So I went with the second option, right, which is social. So, sorry, my compliance wasn't second highest. It was actually third highest. So usually with the code, you have top three highest personalities. So social was my second. I do like the helping people aspect of things. So that's why I decided to do my master's in counseling. I also volunteered for an amazing organization that works with at-risk teenagers that helped me also realize where my skill set lie or where they need more improvement. So in terms of recovery from burnout, I did take the step of when I couldn't stop the job, right? I think one mistake I made was I really wanted to then explore what is the artistic or social things I could do. So I took on too much. I even signed up for to become a yoga teacher cert, and everything had to happen on the weekend because I was working during the day, during the week, and working overtime already and doing my masters, and so it was crazy. But I really wanted to try. And even with the volunteer work, although I felt passionate about it, I really wanted to try. I had to skip out on a lot on it, and I felt really bad. Really sorry for that past when, guys. But one thing then that worked as I was going through the burnout was I blocked off Sundays. I was just like, Sundays just like stay at home, no plans, don't make any plans, even if I think it's a fun thing. I just needed the rest and the sleep, and just the alone time. So I did that. I mean, it doesn't work for everyone, I don't think. But that's just what I needed. Like, even when I agreed to go out with friends to have fun on Sundays, I'll feel so tired, and that depressed feeling will come back. I think because there was a lack of alone time and just being with myself in the nothingness. Our brains need that sometimes. And just stoning out. And maybe for me personally, I need a lot of that, like just to veg out for a while, and then the energy will come back. Of course, not to veg out the entire week, which is not possible anyway. So that's what I did. And of course, try things that I really wanted to just try. I think it was scary at first to test out, or I went full blown with the yoga cert, and then I ended up not completing it because I was too tired still. I think I could have, what if I look back now, what I could have done better was to address my health first, like physical health, and then pursue all those things. But having, being able to try those things was, it gave me a bit of an psychological boost as well. It's like, oh, okay, this is what's out there. Does it seem a bit more aligned with me or not? those explorations were quite fun for me, though I was physiologically drained, and I guess what I told myself eventually is that although I have tried these things, doesn't mean I have to. I'll feel bad, but I don't have to full blown commit and go all the way. If it is too much for me, I just say no, or I feel it's not aligned, I can just say no. So it was learning to say no in a way and say yes to the things that nourish me. And I feel that's what helped me. I wouldn't say that this pattern of overachieving and then burning out has stopped in me, but it's something I'm more aware of. And so when I see it coming, I do have my husband to thank as well, who will always prompt me and say, oh, you know how you're like, consider it, whether you will overexert yourself and burn out and then not show up. I think something that helped me to say no as well is like, will this mean that I won't be able to show up as the kind of person I want to be? Like sometimes if I want to go full out and help a friend, but I myself am tired, is it actually more beneficial for me to just say, no, not this time, I'm really tired, I have stuff going on, but I do want to be there for you in a way where I can be present and be that 100% that I generally want to be, because I'm just not the kind of person who can be like, okay, I'm here and I just do a half-ass job, you know. I just can't stop myself. And I know that's how I am, and I know that's how I want to be when I show up. So sometimes that's how I rationalize saying no to certain things and saying yes as well. And I feel there's another thing that sometimes causes burnout as well, at least for me, is that I just want to do, like, if I know, I observe a lot of things. I'm very detailed, so sometimes I want to do stuff for people because I know that's what they want and it'll make them happy. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, that means I have to keep doing it again and again and again. People expect that from me. So I think what I do is like, I'll be like, I just want to do this for this moment. And it's okay if I don't do the same thing again. Or show up in the same way again, because life is always evolving, people are always evolving, our relationships are always evolving, and that's okay. But in this moment, if that's what I feel like I want to do, to help a friend or to make a friend happy or make the other person happy, then I'll just do it. And sometimes it's important to verbalize it as well, I feel, just to be clear, like, hey, I just know that you like this thing right now, or I have the energy to help right now, so I'll help, but I'm not sure what will happen in the future, or things like that. I guess learning how to communicate my boundaries was really important as well. Though it's very hard, sometimes I had to really step away from certain groups of people that I just felt wasn't aligned with, or I didn't feel like I could be myself around them and have the support to do the things I want to do to grow as a human, right? So do it in a compassionate way. I mean, saying things gently is, apparently people tell me, comes very naturally to me. So something I recently read as well, a good tip when it comes to these kind of things where you have to communicate your boundaries or your needs, is to offer help in the way that you can and also benefits you. So I like the example they gave. This is from an ADHD book. They said to communicate it in a way, because like let's say, it helps you focus, if you're fidgeting or multitasking. So then you offer to take minutes for the meeting. And if you got group work, then you offer to do things that you can actually pull through. Don't like wait for other people to like assign you the thing. Yeah. So in a way, you're still you're still contributing, but not in the way. But I understand there's some situations where you just can't contribute anymore. I think that question about how you get through relationships, and it sort of ties in with burnout as well, because burnout is when the demands are just way too much, more than you can offer, and you just keep being in that distress zone constantly and you just burn out. So I think I'll look into it a bit more, maybe for another episode, how I went about sort of communicating boundaries, because it's a bit of a messy journey, I would say. Yeah, I remember having to tap into my anger, because actually anger is one of the functions is signaling to us that our boundaries have been breached. Yeah, so I remember another story coming up for me. So I feel like it's a story for another episode. And I think I'll end this here for today's episode. And or at least this episode. Hope that was helpful. Sorry, this is my first one, so sorry if it wasn't very sequenced or following a timeline. If there's anything that I didn't explain as much, or you want to know more about, just text me, leave me a comment somewhere, and or email me. I think I haven't decided how people can contact me after listening to this. Just let me know if you want to know more. Again, this is not advice, just me sharing stories. Hopefully you connected at some point and took away some points that might be helpful for you. And see you in the next episode.